The cacophony of the Zeta-9 space station's bustling food court was a symphony of clicks, whistles, and guttural sounds as various alien species communicated in their native tongues. Amidst this auditory chaos, a group of diverse crewmates found themselves huddled around a table, their appendages wrapped around steaming mugs of various intergalactic beverages. "I'm telling you, Zix 427, a gelatinous blob with eye stalks, gurgled emphatically. "I saw it with my own optical receptors." The human just bit into it. Raw shudder rippled through its translucent body, causing the table to vibrate slightly. Kronak, a towering insectoid with mandibles that clicked nervously, leaned in. What exactly did this human consume in such a barbaric manner, he chittered, his antennae twitching with a mixture of disgust and curiosity. Zix 427's eye stalks swiveled dramatically as it prepared to deliver the shocking revelation. An applet whispered, its voice dripping with horror.
A collective gasp echoed around the table, followed by a cacophony of disbelieving exclamations.
"Impossible," screeched Flawn, a avian-like creature with iridescent feathers. "Surely you must be mistaken, Zix. No sentient being would willingly ingest unprocessed plant matter."
Gloop Gloop, a symbiotic pair of slug-like aliens, spoke in perfect unison, their voices a harmonious blend of incredulity and revulsion. "We once observed a human consuming something they called a salad. It was a bowl full of leaves and other vegetation. They didn't even heat it."
The table erupted into a chorus of disgusted noises, ranging from high-pitched squeals to low, rumbling groans. Kronak's mandibles clacked rapidly, a sign of extreme agitation. But that's uncivilized. Don't they know the dangers of consuming raw organic matter? The parasites, the bacteria, the flavor. He spat out the last word, as if it were a curse. Zix 427 wobbled in what passed for a nod among its species. "Oh, it gets worse, my friends. I've heard tales of humans voluntarily ingesting fermented liquids for recreational purposes." Flawn's feathers stood on end, creating a comical puffball effect. "Fermented, you mean?" Intentionally spoiled, her beak clacked shut with an audible snap.
Precisely, Zix 427 confirmed, its gelatinous form quivering with excitement at being the bearer of such salacious gossip. "They call it alcohol, and apparently it impairs their cognitive functions. They seek this effect out deliberately." The Gloop Gloop pair undulated in perfect synchronization, their eye stalks crisscrossing in a display of utter bafflement. But why, they chorused? What possible evolutionary advantage could there be in willingly dulling one's senses?
A new voice joined the conversation, belonging to X-Zarat, a silicon-based lifeform whose crystalline structure sparkled under the harsh fluorescent lights of the food court. "I believe I can shed some light on this peculiar behavior," it chimed in, its voice reminiscent of tinkling wind chimes. "Humans refer to it as having fun or relaxing, apparently. They find temporary cognitive impairment enjoyable."
The table fell silent for a moment as the aliens tried to process this information. Kronak was the first to break the stunned quiet, his mandibles working overtime as he struggled to form words. But, that's...
"Insane," offered Flawn helpfully.
"Reckless," suggested the Gloop Gloop pair.
"Fascinating," concluded X-ZRT, earning startled looks from its companions. Zix 427's body rippled with what might have been a shrug. "Say what you will about humans, but you can't deny they're full of surprises. Did you know they also consume the bodily secretions of other species?" This statement was met with a chorus of retching sounds and horrified exclamations. "Explain yourself immediately," demanded Kronak, his exoskeleton rattling with revulsion. Zix 427's eye stalks curled with glee at the reaction it had elicited. "They call it milk. It's a nutrient-rich fluid produced by the mammary glands of certain earth creatures. Humans not only drink it but also process it into various forms. They even let it rot and call it cheese."
Flawn's beak gaped open in shock. That's... I don't even have words for what that is."
"Disgusting," offered Kronak helpfully. "Abhorrent," suggested the Gloop Gloop Bloop pair.
Ingenious, mused X-Zarat, once again drawing bewildered stares from the group. "How can you possibly defend such revolting practices?" Flawn squawked indignantly, her feathers ruffling in agitation. X-Zarat's crystalline form shimmered as it formulated its response. "Consider the efficiency of it. Humans have found a way to utilize a resource that would otherwise go to waste. Is that not the very essence of technological advancement?
The table fell silent once more as the aliens contemplated this perspective. Kronak's antennae drooped slightly in reluctant consideration. I suppose when you put it that way, it does sound somewhat less barbaric. Zix 427, however, was not about to let the conversation die down. Oh, but we've barely scratched the surface of human culinary depravity, my friends. Have you heard about their obsession with spices? The gloop-gloop pair undulated curiously. Spices? You mean mineral supplements? No, Zix 427 gurgled excitedly. I'm talking about plant-derived substances that humans add to their food solely to alter its flavor. Some of these spices can cause physical pain when consumed. Flawn's feathers flattened against her body in alarm. Pain. They willingly ingest substances that cause them harm.
Zara chimed in, its tone one of fascination rather than disgust. Indeed, there's a compound called capsaicin found in certain earth plants. It triggers pain receptors in the human mouth, yet they actively seek out this sensation. Kronak's mandibles clicked rapidly as he processed this information. But why? What possible benefit could there be in experiencing pain during nutrient consumption?
They claim it enhances the flavor, Zix 427 explained, its gelatinous form rippling with barely contained mirth. Can you believe it? They're literally setting their mouths on fire for fun. The table erupted into a mixture of laughter, disbelieving exclamations, and horrified gasps.
Oh, Flawn chirped, bouncing excitedly on her perch. I've got one. Did you know humans consume the unfertilized reproductive cells of other creatures?
The gloop-gloop pair recoiled in perfect synchronization. That's revolting, they chorused. They call them eggs, Flawn continued, clearly relishing the shocked reactions of her companions. They fry them, boil them, even whip them into a froth and bake them into sweet confections.
Kronak's exoskeleton paled visibly. Sweet. Confections? Made from reproductive cells? That's...
Barbaric, offered Zix 427 helpfully. Nauseating, suggested Flawn.
Resourceful Zarat chimed in, earning a collective groan from the group.
Always the contrarian, aren't you? Zara Kronak chittered, his mandibles clicking in what might have been amusement.
Zarat's crystalline structure glittered, a sign of its species equivalent of a shrug. I merely find the human capacity for adaptation intriguing. They've managed to derive sustenance from the most unlikely sources. Zix 427's eye stalks perked up suddenly. Oh, speaking of unlikely sources, have you heard about their consumption of fungi?
The table fell silent, all eyes or equivalent sensory organs turning towards the gelatinous alien. Fungi, the gloop-gloop pair echoed uncertainly. You mean the decomposers? The organisms that thrive on decay. Zix 427 wobbled enthusiastically. The very same. Humans cultivate various species of fungi for consumption. They call some of them mushrooms. Flawn's beak clacked shut with an audible snap. But fungi are nature's recyclers. They break down dead matter. How can consuming them possibly be safe? Zara chimed in, its tone one of scientific curiosity. Actually, many species of fungi are not only safe for human consumption, but also provide valuable nutrients. Some even have medicinal properties. Kronak's antennae twitched skeptically. Medicinal properties? From a decomposer? Preposterous?
Not at all, Zarat countered. Human medical science has made significant advancements by studying and utilizing various fungal species. They've even developed life-saving medications from them. The table fell into a contemplative silence as the aliens digested this information.
Well, Flawn chirped after a moment, I suppose that's somewhat less disgusting than some of their other dietary habits.
Zix 427's body rippled with what might have been a chuckle. Oh, but we've only scratched the surface of human culinary eccentricities. Did you know they intentionally allow certain foods to rot before consuming them?
The collective groan that emanated from the table was almost palpable. First decomposers, now rotted food, Kronak chittered, his mandibles clicking rapidly in agitation. These humans seemed determined to poison themselves. Ah, but they call it fermentation, Zix 427 explained, its eye stalks curling with amusement. They use it to create all sorts of foods and beverages. There's one particularly pungent substance they call cheese. It's essentially spoiled milk. The gloop-gloop pair undulated in perfect synchronization, their eye stalks crisscrossing in a display of utter revulsion. Spoiled secretions. That's
Revolting, offered Flawn helpfully.
nauseating, suggested Cronak. Fascinating, chimed Zarat, once again drawing exasperated looks from its companions. You would find it fascinating, Cronak chittered, his antennae twitching with a mixture of amusement and disbelief. I swear, Zarat, he'd probably try to eat this cheese if given the chance. Zarat's crystalline structure shimmered in what might have been its species equivalent of a shrug. I am merely pointing out the ingenuity involved in such practices. The ability to safely consume what would otherwise be considered waste, or even dangerous, is a remarkable adaptation.
Flawn ruffled her feathers skeptically. I suppose when you put it that way, it does sound somewhat less repulsive. But surely even humans must have limits to what they consider edible. Zix 427's gelatinous form quivered with barely contained glee. Oh, my dear Flawn, you have no idea. Have you heard about their consumption of marine arthropods? The table fell silent, all attention focused on the blob like alien.
Marine. Arthropods, Cronak echoed uncertainly, his mandibles clicking nervously. Indeed, Zix 427 confirmed, its eye stalks curling with delight at the rapt attention it was receiving. Humans catch these creatures from their oceans, boil them alive, and then crack open their exoskeletons to consume the flesh inside.
A collective shudder ran through the group. Cronak, in particular, seemed especially disturbed by this revelation, his exoskeleton rattling slightly.
That's barbaric, he chittered, his voice rising in pitch. How can they justify such cruelty?
XZRT chimed in, its tone thoughtful. It's interesting to note that human ethical standards regarding food consumption often vary based on cultural and personal beliefs. What one human might consider acceptable, another might find abhorrent. The gloop-gloop pair undulated curiously. You mean they don't have a universal standard for what constitutes ethical food consumption? Precisely, XZRT confirmed. Human dietary practices are often influenced by factors such as geography, tradition, and individual preference.
Flawn's feathers ruffled in confusion. But how do they decide what's acceptable to eat and what isn't? It seems so arbitrary.
Zix 427's body rippled in what might have been a shrug. From what I understand, it often comes down to cultural norms and personal taste. For example, in some human cultures, consuming insects is considered perfectly normal, while in others it's seen as revolting.
Cronak's antennae perked up at this. Insects? You mean they eat creatures similar to my species? Oh yes, Zix 427 gurgled, its eye stalks curling with amusement at Cronak's obvious discomfort. They fry them, roast them, even coat them in sweet substances, and eat them as snacks. Cronak's exoskeleton paled visibly. That's
horrifying, offered Flawn helpfully. Nightmarish, suggested the gloop-gloop pair.
Sustainable, chimed Zarat, once again drawing exasperated looks from its companions.
Always the optimist, aren't you? Zarat's X 427 gurgled, its gelatinous form rippling with what might have been laughter.
Zarat's crystalline structure glittered in response. I merely point out that insects provide a highly efficient source of protein with a much lower environmental impact compared to larger livestock. From a resource management perspective, it's quite admirable.
The table fell into a contemplative silence as the aliens pondered this perspective. I suppose when you put it that way, it does sound somewhat less revolting, Flawn admitted reluctantly, her feathers smoothing down slightly.
Cronak's mandibles clicked thoughtfully. Still, the idea of being considered a potential food source is rather unsettling. Oh, but we've barely scratched the surface of human culinary oddities, Zix 427 interjected, its eye stalks perking up with excitement. Have you heard about their consumption of extremophiles? The table collectively leaned in, curiosity piqued.
Extremophiles, the gloop-gloop pair echoed uncertainly. You mean organisms that thrive in extreme conditions?
Zix 427 wobbled enthusiastically. Exactly. Humans cultivate certain types of extremophilic microorganisms and use them in food production. They even consume some directly.
Flawn's beak gaped open in shock. But how? Wouldn't such organisms be harmful to their biological systems? HFY chimed in, its tone one of scientific fascination. Not necessarily. Many of these microorganisms have been safely incorporated into human diets for millennia. Take, for example, the thermophilic bacteria used in the production of yogurt, or the halophilic organisms used in certain fermentation processes. Cronach's antennae twitched skeptically. You're telling me they willingly introduce foreign microorganisms into their digestive systems? For what purpose? For various reasons, Zarat explained. Some of these microorganisms aid in food preservation, others contribute to flavor development, and some even provide health benefits by supporting the human gut microbiome.
The table fell into a stunned silence as the aliens attempted to process this information. Well, Flawn chirped after a moment. I suppose that's somewhat less disturbing than some of their other dietary habits. At least they're not eating the extremophiles raw, right? Zix 427's body rippled with barely contained mirth. Oh, my dear Flawn, you couldn't be more wrong. In fact, humans consume some extremophiles in their raw, living form. The collective gasp that emanated from the table was almost comical in its synchronicity.
Raw? Living Cronach chittered, his mandibles clicking so rapidly they became a blur. But that's practically parasitic.
The gloop-gloop pair undulated in perfect harmony, their eye stalks crisscrossing in a display of utter bafflement. How can they possibly survive such an assault on their digestive systems?
Zarat chimed in, its crystalline structure glittering with what might have been excitement. It's quite remarkable, actually. The human digestive system has evolved to not only tolerate but benefit from certain types of microbial life. They call it their gut microbiome. Flawn's feathers ruffled skeptically. A beneficial relationship with microorganisms? That sounds suspiciously like symbiosis to me.
Precisely, Zarat exclaimed, its chimes taking on a higher pitch. Humans have developed a complex symbiotic relationship with various microorganisms. Some of these they introduce intentionally through their diet, while others are naturally occurring. Zix 427's eye stalks curled with amusement. Oh, but it gets even better. Humans don't just passively coexist with these microorganisms. They actively cultivate and consume them in various forms. They call some of these probiotics. Cronach's antennae drooped in confusion. Probiotics? You mean they're in favor of biological entities invading their bodies?
In a manner of speaking, yes, Zarat confirmed. These probiotics are believed to confer health benefits when consumed. Humans incorporate them into their diets through fermented foods and dietary supplements.
The gloop-gloop pair undulated thoughtfully. So, they intentionally introduce foreign microorganisms into their bodies. For health reasons. Exactly, Zix 427 gurgled enthusiastically. And here's the kicker: some of these probiotic foods are considered delicacies in human cuisine. Flawn's beak clacked shut with an audible snap. Delicacies? You mean they actually enjoy the taste of these microbial infestations? Zarat's crystalline structure shimmered in what might have been its species equivalent of a nod. Indeed. Take, for example, a substance humans call kombucha. It's a fermented tea beverage teeming with living microorganisms. Humans consume it not only for its purported health benefits, but also for its unique flavor profile.
The table fell into a stunned silence as the aliens attempted to wrap their minds around this concept. Cronach was the first to break the silence, his mandibles working overtime as he struggled to form words. Let me get this straight. Humans intentionally cultivate colonies of microorganisms, allow them to ferment their food and beverages, and then willingly ingest the resulting mixture of tea and microbial byproducts.
Precisely, Zix 427 confirmed, its gelatinous form quivering with barely contained glee. And that's just the tip of the iceberg when it comes to human fermented foods. Flawn's feathers stood on end, creating a comical puffball effect. There's more. How much stranger can their dietary habits possibly get? Zix 427's eye stalks curled with delight at the opportunity to share more shocking human culinary practices. Oh, my dear Flawn, you have no idea. Have you heard about a substance humans call natto?
The blank stares that met this question were answer enough.
Natto. Zix 427 continued, its voice dropping to a dramatic whisper, is a traditional food in one of Earth's cultures. It's made by fermenting soybeans with a specific type of bacteria. The result is a slimy, sticky substance with a pungent odor that some humans describe as challenging even to their own species.
The collective shudder that ran through the group was almost palpable.
But why? Cronak chittered, his exoskeleton rattling slightly in distress. Why would they willingly consume something so revolting? Offered Flawn helpfully.
Nauseating, suggested the gloop pair. Nutritious, chimed Zarat, once again drawing exasperated looks from its companions.
Always the contrarian. Aren't you? Zarat 6427 gurgled, its gelatinous form rippling with what might have been laughter. Zarat's crystalline structure glittered in response. I merely point out that despite its unusual characteristics, natto is highly nutritious. It's rich in protein, fiber, and various vitamins and minerals. From a nutritional standpoint, it's quite an efficient food source. The table fell into a contemplative silence as the aliens pondered this perspective. I suppose when you put it that way, it does sound somewhat less disgusting, Flawn admitted reluctantly, her feathers smoothing down slightly. But surely even humans must have limits to what they consider edible. Zix 427's eye stalks perked up with excitement. Oh, Flawn, you sweet summer child. You have no idea how deep the rabbit hole of human culinary oddities goes. Have you heard about their consumption of literal poison?
The collective gasp that emanated from the table was almost comical in its synchronicity.
Poison? Cronak echoed incredulously, his mandibles clicking rapidly in agitation. Surely you jest, Zix. Even humans couldn't be that reckless. Oh, but they are. Zix 427 confirmed, its gelatinous form quivering with barely contained glee. There's a substance called capsaicin found in certain earth plants. It's so potent that it's used in some of their defensive weapons. And yet, humans actively seek out foods containing this compound. Flawn's feathers flattened against her body in alarm. But why? What possible benefit could there be in consuming a substance used in weapons? Zart chimed in, its tone one of fascination rather than disgust. It's quite interesting, actually. While capsaicin does cause a burning sensation, it doesn't cause any actual physical harm to humans in the quantities found in food. Some humans actively enjoy the sensation and seek out increasingly spicy foods as a form of culinary challenge. The gloop pair undulated in perfect synchronization, their eye stalks crisscrossing in a display of utter bafflement. They derive pleasure from pain. That's masochistic, offered Cronak helpfully. Insane, suggested Flawn.
Endorphin-inducing, chimed XCRRT, once again drawing bewildered stares from the group.
Care to elaborate on that? Zarat, Zix 427 gurgled, its eye stalks curling with curiosity.
Zarat's crystalline structure shimmered as it formulated its response. Gladly. You see, when humans consume spicy foods, their bodies release endorphins, natural painkillers that can create a sense of euphoria. Some humans become quite addicted to this sensation and continually seek out spicier and spicier foods.
The table fell silent as the aliens contemplated this information. Cronak's antennae drooped slightly in reluctant consideration. I suppose when you put it that way, it does sound somewhat less suicidal. But still, intentionally causing oneself pain for pleasure. It seems so illogical.
Zix 427's body rippled with what might have been a shrug. Humans often defy logic, my friend. But their illogical practices don't end with spicy foods. Have you heard about their consumption of neurotoxins? The collective groan that emanated from the table was almost palpable.
Neurotoxins? Flawn squawked, her feathers ruffling in agitation. First weapons-grade irritants, now brain poisons. These humans seem determined to destroy themselves from the inside out. Ah, but they call it caffeine, Zix 427 explained, its eye stalks curling with amusement. It's a stimulant found in various plants. Humans consume it in massive quantities on a daily basis. The gloop pair recoiled in perfect synchronization. Daily consumption of a neurotoxin. That's
reckless, offered Cronak helpfully.
Addictive, suggested Flawn.
Productivity-enhancing, chimed XRRT, once again drawing exasperated looks from its companions.
Always looking on the bright side, aren't you? Zar at 6427 gurgled, its gelatinous form rippling with what might have been laughter. Zarat's crystalline structure glittered in response. I merely point out that caffeine, when consumed in moderation, can have beneficial effects on human cognition and alertness. Many humans rely on it to enhance their work performance.
Kronak's mandibles clicked thoughtfully, so they willingly alter their brain chemistry to work more efficiently. That's actually somewhat admirable, in a twisted sort of way.
Flawn ruffled her feathers skeptically. I suppose when you put it that way, it does sound somewhat less self-destructive. But surely even humans must have limits to what they'll do to their bodies for the sake of flavor or function. Zix 427's eye stalks perked up with excitement. Oh, Flawn, you naive little avian. You have no idea how far humans will go in their culinary adventures. Have you heard about their consumption of literal rocks? The table collectively leaned in, a mixture of horror and morbid curiosity evident in their postures. Rocks, the Gloop Gloop pair echoed uncertainly. Surely you don't mean actual mineral deposits. Zix 427 wobbled enthusiastically. That's exactly what I mean. Humans intentionally add a substance called salt to their food. It's a crystalline mineral composed primarily of sodium chloride. Kronak's exoskeleton paled visibly. But wouldn't that wreak havoc on their electrolyte balance? How can they possibly survive such mineral overload? Zara chimed in, its tone one of scientific fascination. Actually, sodium and chloride are essential electrolytes for human physiological functions. They require a certain amount of salt in their diet to maintain proper bodily functions. Flawn's beak gaped open in shock. So, they're not just eating rocks for flavor, but out of biological necessity. That's barbaric, offered Kronak helpfully. Primitive, suggested the Gloop Gloop pair. Evolutionary, chimed Zarat, once again drawing bewildered stares from the group. Care to elaborate on that? Zarat 427 gurgled, its eye stalks curling with curiosity.
Zarat's crystalline structure shimmered as it formulated its response. Gladly. You see, the human body has evolved to require certain minerals for its biochemical processes. Their taste for salt is likely an evolutionary adaptation to ensure they consume enough of this essential mineral.
The table fell into a contemplative silence, as the aliens pondered this perspective.
Well, Flawn chirped after a moment. I suppose that's somewhat less disturbing than some of their other dietary habits. At least they're not eating rocks for fun, right?
Zix 427's body rippled with barely contained mirth. Oh, my dear Flawn, you couldn't be more wrong. Humans don't just consume salt out of necessity. They've turned it into a culinary art form. The collective groan that emanated from the table was almost palpable. An art form, Kronak chittered incredulously, his mandibles clicking rapidly in agitation. How can the consumption of minerals possibly be considered art? Oh, but it is Zix 427 confirmed, its gelatinous form quivering with barely contained glee. Humans have developed countless varieties of salt, each with its own unique mineral composition and flavor profile. They even have salt sommeliers who specialize in pairing different types of salt with specific foods.
The Gloop Gloop pair undulated in perfect synchronization, their eye stalks crisscrossing in a display of utter bafflement. They have experts dedicated to the consumption of rocks. That's excessive, offered Flawn helpfully.
Pointless, suggested Kronak. Refined, chimed Zarat, once again drawing exasperated looks from its companions. Always the epicure. Aren't you, Zarat 427 gurgled, its eye stalks curling with amusement.
Zarat's crystalline structure glittered in response. I merely appreciate the level of specialization and expertise humans have developed in their culinary practices. The ability to discern subtle differences in mineral composition and apply them to enhance flavor is quite remarkable.
The table fell into a stunned silence as the aliens attempted to wrap their minds around this concept.
Kronak was the first to break the silence, his mandibles working overtime as he struggled to form words. Let me get this straight. Humans not only consume rocks out of biological necessity, but they've turned it into a specialized field of study and a form of artistic expression.
Precisely, Zix 427 confirmed, its gelatinous form quivering with barely contained glee. And that's just scratching the surface of human culinary eccentricities. Flawn's feathers stood on end, creating a comical puffball effect. There's more. How much stranger can their dietary habits possibly get? Zix-427's eye stalks curled with delight at the opportunity to share more shocking human culinary practices. Oh, my dear Flawn, you have no idea. Have you heard about a substance humans call chocolate?
The blank stares that met this question were answer enough.
Chocolate. Chocolate. Zix-427 continued, its voice dropping to a dramatic whisper, is derived from the seeds of a tropical tree. These seeds naturally contain compounds that are toxic to many Earth species. And yet, humans not only found a way to safely process and consume these seeds, but they've also turned them into one of their most beloved food items. The collective gasp that emanated from the table was almost comical in its synchronicity. But why? Kronak chittered, his exoskeleton rattling slightly in distress. Why would they go to such lengths to consume something naturally toxic? HFY chimed in, its tone one of scientific curiosity. It's quite fascinating, actually. The compounds in chocolate, while toxic to some species, have interesting effects on human biochemistry. They can stimulate the release of endorphins and other feel-good chemicals in the human brain. Flawn's feathers ruffled in confusion. So, they consume this chocolate not for its nutritional value, but for its psychoactive effects. Partly XZRT confirmed. But it's also valued for its unique flavor profile and versatility in cooking. Humans use chocolate in everything from sweet desserts to savory main courses. The gloop pair undulated thoughtfully. So, they've taken a potentially dangerous substance and transformed it into a multifaceted culinary ingredient. That's reckless, offered Kronak helpfully.
Indulgent, suggested Flawn. Innovative, chimed XZRT, once again drawing curious looks from its companions.
Here to elaborate on that. XZRT Zix-427 gurgled, its eye stalks curling with interest. XZRT's crystalline structure shimmered as it formulated its response. Gladly. The human approach to chocolate exemplifies their species' ingenuity and adaptability. They took a challenging natural resource and, through experimentation and technology, transformed it into something not just safe, but highly desirable. It's a testament to their creativity and problem-solving skills. The table fell into a contemplative silence as the aliens pondered this perspective. I suppose when you put it that way, it does sound somewhat impressive, Flawn admitted reluctantly, her feathers smoothing down slightly. But surely even humans must have limits to what they'll transform into food. Zix-427's eye stalks perked up with excitement. Oh, Flawn, you innocent fledgling. You have no idea how far humans will go in their quest for new flavors and culinary experiences. Have you heard about their consumption of toxic bacteria? The collective gasp that emanated from the table was almost palpable. Toxic bacteria, Kronak echoed incredulously, his mandibles clicking rapidly in agitation. Surely you jest, Zix. Even humans couldn't be that reckless. Oh, but they are, Zix-427 confirmed, its gelatinous form quivering with barely contained glee. There's a substance called botulinum toxin produced by certain bacteria. It's one of the most lethal toxins known in their world. And yet humans have found a way to use it in their food. Flawn's feathers flattened against her body in alarm. But why? What possible benefit could there be in consuming one of the deadliest toxins in existence? XZRT chimed in, its tone one of fascination rather than disgust. It's quite interesting, actually. Humans don't consume the toxin directly. They use the bacteria that produce it in a fermentation process to create a food they call HFY. The gloop pair undulated in perfect synchronization, their eye stalks crisscrossing in a display of utter bafflement. They ferment food using deadly bacteria. That's suicidal, offered Kronak helpfully. Insane, suggested Flawn.
Culturally significant, chimed XZRT, once again drawing bewildered stares from the group.
Care to elaborate on that? XZRT's 427 gurgled, its eye stalks curling with curiosity. XZRT's crystalline structure shimmered as it formulated its response. Gladly. You see, HFY is a traditional food in a specific human culture. It's made by fermenting and then drying the meat of a species of shark that's naturally toxic due to high levels of urea and trimethylamine oxide in its flesh. The table fell silent as the aliens attempted to process this information. Kronak's antennae drooped slightly in confusion. Let me get this straight. They take a naturally toxic meat, ferment it with potentially deadly bacteria, and then eat it. Precisely Zix 427 confirmed, its gelatinous form quivering with barely contained glee. And here's the kicker: many humans, even those from the culture that produces it, describe the smell and taste as extremely unpleasant. Flawn's beak gaped open in shock. But why? Why would they willingly consume something so dangerous and unpleasant? Zar chimed in once again. It's a fascinating example of how human culture and tradition can influence their dietary practices. The production and consumption of hakal is deeply rooted in the history and identity of a particular human society. The gloop pair undulated thoughtfully. So, they risk their lives and endure unpleasant flavors. For the sake of cultural tradition. That's primitive, offered Kronak helpfully. Foolish, suggested Flawn. Admirable, chimed Zarat, once again drawing exasperated looks from its companions.
Always the anthropologist, aren't you? XZR86 427 gurgled, its eye stalks curling with amusement.
Zarat's crystalline structure glittered in response. I merely appreciate the complexity of human cultural practices. The fact that they've developed safe methods to consume naturally toxic substances and continue to do so even when other food sources are available speaks to the importance they place on maintaining their cultural heritage. The table fell into a contemplative silence as the aliens pondered this perspective. I suppose when you put it that way, it does sound somewhat less insane, Flawn admitted reluctantly, her feathers smoothing down slightly. But surely this must be an extreme example. Humans can't possibly have many foods like this, right? 427's body rippled with what might have been a chuckle. Oh, my dear Flawn, you have no idea. Humans have a whole category of foods they call acquired taste items that are often initially unpleasant but become enjoyable with repeated exposure. Kronak's mandibles clicked rapidly in disbelief. You mean they intentionally consume unpleasant foods multiple times until they start to like them? But why? Zarat chimed in, its tone thoughtful. It's an interesting phenomenon, isn't it? There are various theories about why humans engage in this behavior. Some suggest it's a way of demonstrating cultural belonging or sophistication. Others propose that it's related to the human drive for novel experiences. The gloop pair undulated curiously. Novel experiences? You mean they seek out potentially unpleasant sensations? For fun? Exactly, Zix 427 gurgled enthusiastically. Humans have this fascinating concept called adventurous eating. They actively seek out new and unusual flavors and textures, often deliberately pushing their comfort zones.
Flawn's feathers ruffled in confusion. But what's the evolutionary advantage in consuming potentially harmful or unpleasant substances?
Zarat's crystalline structure shimmered as it formulated its response. That's a complex question, Flawn. On one level, this behavior could be seen as an extension of humans' omnivorous nature. Their willingness to try new foods might have helped them adapt to various environments throughout their evolutionary history. Kronak's antennae twitched thoughtfully. I suppose that makes some sense, but surely in their current technological state, such behavior is no longer necessary. But that's where it gets really interesting, Zix 427 interjected, its eye stalks curling with excitement. Humans don't just engage in adventurous eating out of necessity. They've turned it into a form of entertainment and social bonding. The collective what that emanated from the table was almost comical in its synchronicity. Oh yes, Zix 427 continued, clearly relishing the shocked reactions of its companions. Humans have eating competitions where they consume vast quantities of food, often pushing their bodies to the limit. They have television shows dedicated to consuming extremely spicy foods or bizarre combinations of ingredients. Some humans even travel great distances just to try new and exotic dishes. Flawn's beak clacked shut with an audible snap. They risk their health and comfort. For entertainment? That's reckless, offered Kronak helpfully. Wasteful, suggested the gloop pair. Culturally enriching, chimed Zarat, once again drawing curious looks from its companions. Care to elaborate on that? Zarat Zix 427 gurgled, its eye stalks curling with interest. Zarat's crystalline structure glittered as it formulated its response. Gladly. You see, for many humans, food is not just about sustenance. It's a way to experience different cultures, to challenge themselves, to create shared experiences with others. These extreme eating behaviors, while perhaps seeming irrational from a purely nutritional standpoint, serve important social and cultural functions in human society. The table fell into a contemplative silence as the aliens pondered this perspective. Kronak was the first to break the silence, his mandibles working slowly as he processed this information. So, you're saying that humans view eating not just as a biological necessity, but as a form of entertainment, cultural exploration, social bonding. Precisely, Zarat chimed enthusiastically. Human cuisine is about so much more than mere nutrition. It's an art form, a social activity, a way of preserving history and tradition, and a means of pushing the boundaries of sensory experience. Flawn's feathers ruffled thoughtfully. When you put it that way, it almost sounds admirable. Reckless and bizarre, certainly, but also kind of impressive. The Gloop pair undulated in agreement. Indeed, the sheer variety and complexity of human culinary practices is quite remarkable when you consider it. Zix 427's gelatinous form rippled with what might have been a nod. I must admit, the more we discuss it, the more fascinating human food culture becomes. It's chaotic, often illogical, and sometimes downright dangerous. But it's also incredibly diverse, innovative, and meaningful to them. Zarat's crystalline structure shimmered brightly. Exactly. And that's what makes humans so interesting. Their approach to food exemplifies so many of their species' characteristics: their adaptability, their creativity, their willingness to take risks, their drive to push boundaries, and their ability to derive complex cultural meaning from seemingly simple biological needs. The table fell into a thoughtful silence as the aliens contemplated this new perspective on human culinary habits. Kronak's antennae twitched curiously. You know, the more we talk about this, the more I find myself intrigued. Don't get me wrong, I still think many of their practices sound revolting and dangerous, but I can't help but admire their innovative spirit and cultural diversity. Flawn bobbed her head in agreement. I hate to admit it, but I'm starting to feel the same way. Their culinary practices may be bizarre, but the meaning and creativity behind them is undeniably impressive. The Gloop pair undulated enthusiastically. Perhaps we've been too quick to judge. Maybe there's more to human cuisine than we initially thought. Zix 427's eye stalks curled with amusement. Well. Look at us. We started this conversation utterly disgusted by human eating habits, and now we're practically singing their praises. Who would have thought? Zara chimed in, its tone light and teasing. Are you all saying that you might be willing to try some human cuisine? The collective shudder that ran through the group was almost palpable, followed by a burst of laughter, or each species equivalent thereof. Let's not get carried away, Kronak chittered, his mandibles clicking rapidly in amusement. I can appreciate their culinary creativity from a safe distance. Thank you very much. Flawn ruffled her feathers in agreement. Indeed. I'll stick to my nutrient pellets, if it's all the same to you. But I must say, I have a newfound respect for humans and their gastronomic adventures. The Gloop pair undulated in perfect synchronization. Agreed. Their practices may be strange to us, but there's no denying the complexity and meaning behind them. Zix 427's gelatinous form rippled with what might have been a chuckle. Well, my friends, I think we can all agree that this has been a most enlightening discussion. Who knew that human eating habits could provoke such a profound conversation? Zarat's crystalline structure glittered brightly. Indeed. It just goes to show that there's always more to learn about other species, especially ones as complex and contradictory as humans. Their approach to food is just one small facet of their fascinating culture. As the group of alien friends continued their animated discussion, their initial disgust and horror had transformed into a mixture of bewildered respect and cautious fascination. They may not have been ready to sample human cuisine themselves, but they had gained a new appreciation for the creativity, diversity, and cultural significance of human culinary practices. In the vast expanse of the galaxy, with its myriad of alien species and cultures, humans had once again proven themselves to be uniquely, bafflingly, and somewhat admirably weird. Their relationship with food, it seemed, was just another example of the complex, contradictory, and endlessly intriguing nature of humanity. As the conversation drifted to other topics, each alien couldn't help but ponder what other surprising discoveries they might make about their human crewmates. One thing was certain: life aboard an intergalactic vessel would never be boring with humans around. Their culinary adventures were just the tip of the iceberg in the vast ocean of human peculiarities. and despite their initial revulsion, each alien found themselves oddly looking forward to learning more about the strange, fascinating species known as humans.